And action!
Recently I watched a YouTube video that was a 3-hour compilation of David Fincher directing his movies. It had some of the best behind the scenes footage of films I've ever seen. From the script writing process to storyboarding, previs, tech scouts, test shoots, all the way up to shooting the movie itself. I find these videos so captivating because they demystify something that seems to be such a mystery to most of us: filmmaking. It is so rare to get a lot of uncut behind the scenes materials of raw on-set footage that hasn't been carefully curated by the studio's marketing team. It's even more rare to get this kind of footage of a master like David Fincher going through his process. I found this video on YouTube on a page called Shot, Drawn, and Cut, which has a lot of similar other compilations of behind the scenes footage of some of the greatest directors of all time. I'll link the page below. But watching this amazing footage of a master at work doing his craft made me think of a particular genre of film that scratches this itch. The genre of movies about making movies. Little did I know that there's actually a name for this genre, called showbiz drama. Thinking about this genre made me beg the question, why are we so interested in movies that revolve around making a movie? So today we're going to explore this niche genre of film and talk about some of my favorite films within the genre. For as long as films have existed, there has been a kind of aura around the process of making them. Watching a movie is like watching a magic trick. The first thing you think after seeing one is, wow, that was really good. I enjoyed that. And most likely the second thought you will have will immediately be, how did they do that? Something that leaves you baffled, at a loss for words, will inevitably lead you down the rabbit hole of solving the mystery of how it was accomplished. Because as much as we want to believe, we all know that there's no such thing as magic. But at the same time, we all wonder, how can we be watching something on a screen that we can't explain? How did they get that shot? Is that real? Did that person actually do that stunt? Human beings are funny creatures, where our brains are split into two parts. One that is based off of reasoning and logic, wanting to analyze the world around us in the most practical and objective way. And the other part of our brain that is based off emotion and feelings, this irrational part. This is where our brains conjure up emotions that are sometimes not always logical. This part of the brain dictates each of our subjective realities. Watching a movie is an act that puts these two parts of our brains at odds. We must put away our rational part of our mind to suspend our disbelief in order to open up ourselves to be impacted by the emotional and psychological effects of a film. Sure, you could sit there with your arms crossed while watching a movie thinking about all the improbabilities and possibilities and unlikelihoods that are happening in front of you on that two-dimensional plane that we call a screen. Many people in fact do this while watching a movie, but most of us let go while watching a movie in order to be taken on a ride that the movie wants us to go on. If you sit back and accept what is being shown on that screen as reality, then you will have the best possible experience while watching a film. But eventually, for many of us, after the credits roll and we're walking out of the movie theater, our logical mindset starts to creep back in, and we wonder how the filmmakers achieved what they did in order to move our emotions. If you really think about it, all filmmaking really does is use trickery to manipulate our emotions. Now, most people may have a bad connotation of the word manipulate, but it doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing. All it really means is someone, in this case the filmmakers, are using methods to make you feel a certain way, the way that they intended while you're watching the movie. This can be happy, sad, scared, and excited. But make no mistake, their goal is to manipulate your emotions using a camera. We all accept this fact when we go see a movie. We're dropping our guard in disbelief for a moment so we can be temporarily manipulated. But after most people have voluntarily allowed this, their next question is how? How was this done to me? This is where this niche genre of film comes in that can bridge both desires. The showbiz drama. It allows us to be taken on an emotional joyride while also having our curiosity met of how films are made. Most people that see movies have no idea how they're made, and even less attempt the grueling process of creating one themselves. Having that said, many still find the process fascinating, and end up searching for all the materials they can on the movie making process. Studios eventually recognized this and started making their own behind-the-scenes materials of their movies. There were some earlier examples of directors and studios giving audiences a glimpse behind the scenes of making a film.
Upon the simple theory of animation, a new art has been created.
A couple of early examples were RKO doing a 1938 documentary on how Walt Disney cartoons were made, as well as Alfred Hitchcock doing a featurette on his 1960 horror classic, Psycho.
Less innocent than the motel itself.
Later productions started making whole documentary films following the productions of these movies. This really became the industry norm in the 70s and going into the 80s, but it was the popularization of at-home movies with VHS tapes and DVDs that led to an explosion of behind-the-scenes materials. Studios were aware of the growing need from audiences to see behind the scenes, and decided to put them on their home editions of their films as an added bonus for audiences. This gave viewers even more reason to buy the film when it was released for at home, which was a win-win for both studios and audiences. As time went on, behind-the-scenes materials started to become a necessity rather than an afterthought in a film's journey. Suddenly, nearly every film being made had a behind-the-scenes team documenting the making of the movie. The once mystified curtain of the magic of filmmaking had been drawn back and opened for all the world to see. Transparency from studios and filmmakers was now the name of the game to grab audiences. Behind-the-scenes films, pictures, and posters gave audiences a better glimpse into how their favorite movies were actually made. As time went on and more about the productions of films were released, many of these productions started to develop their own legends and stories. All of a sudden, the actual production of the movie and the stories behind them started to become almost as big as the movies themselves. One example of this is the film Heart of Darkness, a documentary film covering the behind-the-scenes process of the grueling production of Francis Ford Coppola's 1979 classic, Apocalypse Now.
We were in the jungle.
On était au jungle.
There were too many of us.
On était de trop dans l'équipe.
We had access to too much money.
On avait accès à trop d'argent.
Too much equipment.
Trop d'équipement.
And little by little we went insane.
The film was made by Coppola's wife, Eleanor, and was released in 1991. By then, the film had already been given legendary status. But this documentary changed the way the film was seen even more. People finally got a look into one of the hardest productions in movie-making history.
Acknowledge, I will tell you right straight from the most sincere depths of my heart, the film will not be good.
Coppola gave first-hand insights into his struggles to make the film and what it meant to him. After the success of the first two Godfather films, Coppola set his sights high on his next film to be a Vietnam War film, and based the plot off the classic novel Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. The production of the film turned out to be a tumultuous process for all involved. First, a typhoon completely wrecked the sets on location in the Philippines, causing the crew to rebuild them from scratch. Then the lead actor Harvey Keitel quit the film, causing Coppola to replace his role at the last minute with Martin Sheen. One night, the entire crew's payroll got stolen. The film eventually became 6 weeks and $2 million over budget. Coppola had to cough up the remaining amount and take out loans for the insurance claim for the typhoon damages. When Marlon Brando finally arrived on set, he was way too overweight, causing Coppola to have to rewrite the script and Brando's character. And on top of that, Brando refused to remember his lines, causing him to read off of cue cards and go on long rambling monologues off script.
You take. I swallowed a bug.
Oh, and on top of that, the film's lead, Martin Sheen, had a nearly fatal heart attack during production. By the end of shooting, Coppola had reportedly lost around 100 pounds from the sheer stress of making the movie. The tale of the trials and tribulations of the making of Apocalypse Now became the stuff of legend, and the story of its production was almost as dramatic as the actual film itself. And none of it would have ever been known or believed had no one been there on set to document the struggles of making it. Heart of Darkness was not alone. There were many other films that went behind the scenes to show just how much commitment and dedication was needed from the filmmakers to bring their dream to life. So So we know at this point that audiences love watching movies and love watching how movies are made. This gave filmmakers a clever idea. Why don't we make a movie that is about making a movie? What if we combine these two desires of the audience? The earliest example I could find of a film where the story revolves around the making of a film was a 1928 Buster Keaton film called The Cameraman, where Buster Keaton plays, you guessed it, a cameraman, and one of the most influential and groundbreaking films of its time, King Kong, centered around a film crew going to a mysterious island to shoot a film. It's crazy to think how early that this concept became a part of film, not even 100 years into its invention. King Kong was released all the way back in 1933. Now, to put that in perspective, this was just a couple decades after the concept of what a movie even was became defined. And up to this point, most films had been silent films, without the use of dialogue. So King Kong was groundbreaking in that it took the chance to revolve around showing the making of a film, back when most people didn't even know how films were made. As time went along, more movies of this kind got made. Many of them ended up being classics. Sunset Boulevard, Singin' in the Rain, A Star is Born, all made in Hollywood's golden age. These films about films continued to get made, whether they were about real-life movie stories, such as 1992's Chaplin, a Charlie Chaplin biopic starring a young Robert Downey Jr., or Tim Burton's Ed Wood, a film about real-life director Edward Wood. Or be it films following the fictional production of made-up movies like Barton Fink, The Player, or Bowfinger. These movies about movies aren't even necessarily limited to the making of Hollywood movies. Take for instance Paul Thomas Anderson's 1997 classic Boogie Nights, about the making of porno movies. One of the most talented directors of his generation wrote and directed his second movie, the one that really put him on the map, about the niche world of pornographic films. This was a new take on the subgenre of showbiz dramas, showing the many parallels and dramas between the world of Hollywood productions and adult movies.
Oh, Jesus.
Another take on this genre is the found footage film. This was first pioneered in 1999 with Blair Witch Project. Blair Witch Project was a film made by film students at the University of Central Florida who found documentaries of paranormal phenomena to be even scarier than traditional horror films. This gave them the bright idea to combine the styles of both, revolving the story around footage found of students who go missing, documenting their investigation of paranormal activity. Ergo, a found footage film. This take was unique because it made the making of a film a key plot point, but also the point of view of the story itself. The camera that captures the making of the documentary in the movie is also the one that follows the main characters throughout the story. This was a groundbreaking concept and connected with audiences, as Blair Witch Project literally broke the Guinness World Book of Records for top budget box office ratio, making $248 million off of a measly $60,000 budget, a ratio of $1 spent for every 10,931 made. It also started a new craze of found footage films in the 2000s, such as Cloverfield and the Paranormal Activity series. Moving into the 21st century, the momentum of showbiz dramas wasn't slowing down. Seeing the previous successes of this genre's foundation having been laid down, bigger and bigger names started using this idea on bigger and bigger projects. 2002's adaptation starring Nicolas Cage and Meryl Streep followed an entangled story of a screenwriter and the novel he's trying to adapt into a script. In 2004, legendary director Martin Scorsese made The Aviator, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, a biopic pic of the aviator, oil tycoon, and filmmaker Howard Hughes. Hughes was also a movie fanatic and director himself, and the film partially follows his troubled production of Hell's Angels. The 1930 film, which was one of the most expensive movies made of its time, and much like Coppola with Apocalypse Now, Hughes put a large portion of his own money into making the film. The very next year, in 2005, Peter Jackson, coming off of the unprecedented success of the Lord of the Rings trilogy and sweeping the Oscars, decided on a King Kong remake as his next project. This was telling at the time because Jackson was literally the hottest director on the planet and could have chosen any project he wanted. It was a remake of one of his favorite films that influenced his love of cinema early in his life. And Jackson decided to keep with the story beats of the original, revolving it around the production of a movie on Skull Island. The Aviator and King Kong proved that the biggest directors in Hollywood were willing and excited to make movies about making movies. But in 2008, a game changer was released, switching up the genre and leaning into the movie-making process perhaps better than any film up to that point. That's right, I'm talking about Tropic Thunder.
Let's go get those Viet Congs.
Ben Stiller, one of the biggest comedic actors of the 2000s, decided his next project would be an epic tale about a group of actors starring in a Vietnam War movie called Tropic Thunder. The film then gets derailed by a group of local militants. Stiller would direct and star in the movie, and it would have a stacked cast of the biggest stars of the day: Jack Black, Matthew McConaughey, Bill Hader, Nick Nolte, Danny McBride, and Tom Cruise. And of course, who could forget Robert Downey Jr. starring as Australian method actor Kirk Lazarus, who undergoes pigmentation alteration surgery to star as Lincoln Osiris, an African-American soldier in the Vietnam War.
Man, I don't drop character till I've done a DVD commentary.
This was an absolute crazy and very risky idea, even back in 2008, pre-cancel culture days. Stiller was trying to take the tropes of the genre and the tropes of the Hollywood system itself and make an epic satire comedy masterpiece. The film weaved in a lot of themes and cliches that are apparent to both audiences and those who work within the industry.
It's all just make-believe.
It was a clever deconstruction of the ridiculousness of the industry that to that point had not really been satirized in such a way. Each one of the characters represented a certain kind of person in the industry that certainly everyone meets if you work in it long enough. Tug Speedman, the leading man who made his name and fortune playing the same generic action hero in an endless amount of sequels and repetitive franchise movies.
That's the trailer right there.
He tries to redefine his image as a serious dramatic actor, only for it to backfire disastrously. The pretentious dramatic actor that racks up all the awards ends up going so far with his next role that he forgets who he even is.
Scared of you.
The arrogant studio executive who everyone fears, his ass-kissing assistant, the young and naive up-and-coming actor who has a true love of cinema and is the only one there for the right reasons. I could go on and on about how this movie uses film industry insider tropes and makes it accessible to all audiences, and turns the film into a comedic masterpiece. You know the Apocalypse Now making of documentary from earlier, Heart of Darkness? Well, that's where Stiller got a lot of his inspiration from, as well as other Vietnam War movies from that era, like Platoon. Tropic Thunder went on to show that as seriously as some films try to portray the movie industry, that it's okay to show that often it can be ridiculous, and that it's okay not to take itself too seriously. When the industry is willing to be self-deprecating, it speaks to the audiences. Tropic Thunder went on to show that as seriously as some films try to portray the movie industry, that it's okay to show that often it can be ridiculous, and that it's okay not to take itself too seriously. When the industry is willing to be self-deprecating, it speaks to the audiences, and they actually appreciate an industry of people that are okay with laughing at themselves and not becoming too pretentious. It worked so well, in fact, that Robert Downey Jr. even got a Best Supporting Actor nomination for his role as an African-American man.
What?
Something that would never ever happen in any other film, but that was just how good Tropic Thunder was, and how it redefined the genre of showbiz dramas. Going forward into 2011, a film called The Artist released. It was a black and white silent film made in the modern day as a homage to the roots of Hollywood in the silent film era. And well, it was a hit with the critics. It won 5 Academy Awards at the Oscars, including Best Picture. The showbiz drama was now respected by the highest bar of critics in film, the Academy. At this point, anything that was self-referential to the movie industry was getting lauded by critics and industry insiders, especially if the film paid homage to a previous era in film history. That year, a showbiz drama film had won the highest honors possible, and going forward, this gave iconic directors even greater freedom to explore their own industry and craft. Martin Scorsese went back to the roots of film history in his 2011 film, Hugo, which portrayed the magic of the early days of film and its use of early special effects. And in 2019, Quentin Tarantino would go on to make the ultimate love letter to old Hollywood in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, place in the late 1960s during the transition from the old golden days of the Hollywood system to the new Hollywood of the late 60s and 1970s. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was set in Los Angeles during the Manson murders, in which up-and-coming actress and wife to director Roman Polanski was brutally murdered along with 4 others at her home in the Hollywood Hills. The main characters were Rick Dalton, a declining actor known for working on Western TV shows, and his friend and stunt double, Cliff Booth. This film is one big ode to Tarantino's love of the Hollywood era that he grew up in, with references to the era, as well as character cameos from the likes of Steve McQueen and Bruce Lee. Tarantino's look at the movie industry, mixed with his historic revisionism as seen in other films, makes for a unique and quintessential look at Hollywood in one of its most defining eras. In 2022, 2 more showbiz dramas were released from 2 iconic directors. One an established industry legend and the other a young, accomplished filmmaker. Damien Chazelle's Babylon was an epic following the scene of early Hollywood in the Roaring '20s, just as Hollywood was being established as the world's center for movies. During this time, the industry was grappling with transitioning from silent films to talkies, with sound dialogue being introduced. There's an awesome scene with Margot Robbie that shows the early complications with the not yet proven new sound equipment used in the early days of sound pictures.
Hello, college.
No good for sound.
Well, fucking hell, Lloyd.
Hiya, this is Joanne.
Mother.
1917, take 6. Who sneezed? Who the fuck sneezed?
The film looks at the industry through a much forgotten view of parts of Hollywood that inevitably get left behind as it transitions into a new age with new technology. Although Babylon bombed at the box office and it didn't get great critical reception, I think this one is one of those films that will age better and better with years to come, especially in the age we are currently in, where so much about the movie industry is changing so fast. And as AI technology makes for uncertainty for those in the industry and where it is going in the future. Babylon has some striking parallels with our current age, and in my opinion will be looked back on more fondly in the years to come. In that same year, one of the greatest directors of all time, Steven Spielberg, made a deeply personal and autobiographical film about his childhood and his early love of cinema. The Fabelmans follows a young boy as he grows up learning to love and make movies, all while dealing with the difficulties of his parents' divorce. It is interesting, but not necessarily surprising, that a director of Steven Spielberg's caliber would make his own love letter to cinema, all while dealing with his own personal heartbreak in such a deeply personal film. The Fabelmans depicts young Spielberg making 8mm films with his friends in the deserts of Arizona, just as he did all those years ago. The finale is also a true story of young Spielberg meeting his filmmaking hero, John Ford, played by the late David Lynch, and getting a little bit of a lesson in composition.
When the horizon's in the middle, it's boring as shit.
The Fabelmans is a personal film that also is a universal celebration of cinema and how one of its greatest filmmakers got his start. One thing for certain is that audiences and filmmakers alike are always looking for a good story. And the making of a movie always seems to provide that. Whether it's based on the making of a movie that was actually made, or the making of a fictional one, the showbiz drama is one that is a main staple of cinema, from its very beginnings until now, and it certainly isn't going anywhere soon. For most cinephiles, the process of making movies is something to be cherished, a holy act upon which the stories made on set are just as memorable as the ones that turn up on the screen. This genre is now making its way onto TV and streaming with Apple TV's new series, The Studio, created by and starring Seth Rogen. The Studio is excellent and moves the genre into another direction from the point of view of the studios and studio executives that oversee which movies get made and which ones never see the light of day. There's been a lot of discussion about the rapid change of the movie industry in recent years. Audiences are definitely noticing that the kind of movies that get made are falling into fewer and fewer categories each year. It's either big budget franchise films based off of already established IP, or very few independent low budget films that seek to win awards. The middle budget movie is dead. The more original films that used to get made are now not being made at all. And if they are, they go straight to streaming services and never see a movie theater. The studio shines light on an unfortunate but undeniable fact about an industry that wages a constant war between business and art, between the needs and wants of the shareholders and executives and those of the filmmakers and the audiences. Because at the end of the day, films cost money, and for them to get made, studios need to be pretty sure that they will make that money back. The studio does an excellent job at exposing this undeniable fact of the film industry, while also being a great piece of entertainment that is crafted in an artful and thoughtful way. The showbiz drama exposes the hypocrisies and contradictions of an art form that is so dear to many of our hearts. An industry that seems to be on the cusp of another era of change and uncertainty. It's important that movies about movies keep getting made so that we can take a step back and really look at this industry for what it is, the good and the bad, as well as pay homage and respect to those that came before us and made the industry what it is today.
Mark.
So let me know what you think. Do you like movies that are about making movies? Are there any that I forgot to mention that you think are worth shining light on? And where do you think the future of the industry in general is going? Let me know in the comments, and if you've made it this far in the video, thanks for watching. Please drop a like, subscribe if you haven't. Catch you next time.